No, I'm a lot more a week 5 made a difference. Good evening. Time being 7 o'clock on Monday, October 28th, 2024. I would like to call the regular scheduled council meeting to order. If you'd all please stand, face the flag, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, one state, under God, one indivisible. Move that over. Somebody heard that. Somebody screwed us up. Sorry about that. We're used to reading it. Okay. Next item of business is public input. I have public input, then I have some other people that would like to speak on a public hearing. I'm going to hold these until the public hearing. First person to speak on public input is Jeannie Stagberg. Please come.
So good evening, everyone. I am Janine Stageberg, 29 Bradford Lane in Boots Ranch. And I just had some questions. We're clearly a younger family here, ultimately love my coined term, connected country living here in Copper Canyon. And I just, I'm trying to be a little bit more involved, looked at the agenda and looked at the proposal for professional services for Dunaway. And I just had just a couple of questions as it relates to zoning kind of caught my eye. And clearly, being in Copper Canyon, we have that really kind of, again, connected country living, that rural kind of vibe. And my concern in anything having to do with zoning is questions, and I know you guys can't answer my questions, so I don't know, maybe I could have an offline conversation, but just bringing it to your attention that it's a question of mine and a lot of our neighbors is, didn't we do some zoning in 2020 and did like a master plan? I think it was when we bought our land, because it was really important to us that the minimums were an acre, 2 acres, or 5 acre minimums. So that's really important to us and to our neighbors, especially in Boots Ranch. So when I saw that it was the zoning was potentially a topic of conversation again, it just kind of perked my ears up. Secondarily to that, is that would that open up a door to potentially multi-use, mixed use outside of like the town center? I don't know if I'm using the right terminology there, off of Justin. I know that that's different. And then also Williams Ranch, I know, has smaller lots. I think it's 3/4 of an acre. So just expressing our family's interest in keeping Copper Canyon zoning the way that it currently is. And then the last thing I guess I would say, going back to the master plan, I saw some of the fee schedules within the Dunaway side of things. So I was just curious, I don't think we've said yes to that proposal. Okay. So do we have bids from others? I know whenever we are getting work done, we're getting multiple bids. But then secondarily to that, who signs off on that if we do make a choice on Dunaway? And then lastly, I know that our town, some changes happened. I think our attorney is no longer with us, so we have an outside counsel. Would it be cheaper to work with them on the zoning ordinances as opposed to using Dunaway?
So let me answer all your questions real quick.
Love it. Okay.
We have a permanent attorney. We just changed attorneys.
Oh,
So
okay.
our attorney is not temporary. He's a permanent attorney.
Okay.
The zoning that you're thinking about, there's nothing changing in our zoning. All of the Dunaway proposal is to go in and clean up verbiage, be sure the T's in the right spot in the I, dots in the right spot, and the commas in the right spot, and then that we comply to federal and state regulations. We're not sure we're going down this path yet. So And the Dunaway proposal was merely a request for services.
Okay.
And we did get a quote from them. I don't see that moving forward tonight.
Okay.
Okay. But your concerns are valid. We're not changing. I can assure you, if we're going to change zoning, it's going to be less density than higher density.
Love. Okay.
But it's
Awesome.
just a procedure we're going.
And
through
this
tonight.
council has to approve.
Yeah, we have to. approve
Okay.
that. Yeah,
Agreements.
I'm newer to all the things. I want to get more involved, but
absolutely.
still have little kids and work.
It's,
but
it's easier to answer some of these things tonight than it is for you
No,
to
I
sit
love
out
it.
there. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's
Thank
all I
you.
have.
Uh-huh.
Thanks, guys.
Ted Stranzik, you got two of them, Ted. You want?
Yeah, I'd like to just make a short comment on the diagnostic report, and then if you're going to allow on the professional services to comment on that a little bit later.
Well, just do your public on both of them. So if you don't mind.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Recognizing that this report, and I'm talking about the diagnostic report first, is a summary overview of the final and there will be a final report later that will contain a lot more detail regarding all of the issues if it's approved, and we'll see how that happens. But there are some recommendations when I look at that diagnostic report that I'd like you to consider. One of them has to do with eliminating the town center and all of the problems that have occurred as a result of that. The other one has to do with firm recommendations and enforcement actions regarding violations of town ordinances. There seems to be this guy did something bad. He forgot to do this, but there's this overall forgiveness every time, and we get this repetitive violations. There needs to be stronger enforcement, just plain and simple. The other issue has to do to update the flood and drainage mitigation issues that we are confronted with every time we look at a development. The other issue is recommending and updating the town zoning map and land use plan as part of these ordinances, because they go hand in hand. And then a specific issue about easements, and that is that the current method of easement creation and approval, we need to modify that. And by running the entire easement process through P&Z and the town council before anything is submitted to Denton County. Any activation of current easements and their associated requirements should first be reviewed by P&Z for relevance and compliance to the master plan and our land use plan. Those are my comments on the diagnostic report.
Okay.
Now, on the professional services side, my views are as follows. I'd like you to consider those 5 items that I just discussed, and then specific to items in that professional services proposal, there's a $5,000 an hour rate. It's not defined. It seems excessive, and I think it requires.
That's not an hour. That's not an hour. That's a lump sum. That's not to exceed.
Well, it does say $5,000.
Okay, that's, sorry, it's a typo. That's not to exceed.
Okay, well,
Okay.
then it still needs a little bit of
You
explanation.
know, that would not happen, so.
I'm not crook when I read it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I have that job?
The other thing is that there's standard billing rates that are called out on this contract, and I think they're unrealistic and should be melded. There should be one rate, not you got a guy he's going to charge his services from $160 to $300. Wait a minute. What is the rate for each one of these guys or persons or services? And it should be that, not something that's basically arbitrary. When it looks at reimbursable expenses, there's a 1% administration fee, But then there's internal printing, postage, invoicing, fields. Wait a minute. Some of that stuff should be included in their basic services. And they're trying to charge extra for all of this stuff. I have a problem with that. The issue of warranties, guarantees, certificates. The provider should stipulate that all recommendations are in compliance with current state and local regulations to include at a minimum those specific mandatory requirements affecting a type A general law town. And that, I see that nowhere in there, and that needs to be addressed accordingly. Intellectual property. We're paying for this. If we're paying for it, we own the property. However, future use of any intellectual property created as a result of this agreement can be easily satisfied by the creation of a limited licensing agreement that would not be unreasonably withheld. So if in fact that occurs, work it out, it's no big deal. The governing law. The services are provided in Denton County. The governing law should be, for the venue, should be Denton. They want to use the town name in some of their advertising. I think that's fine, provided we get a chance to review it beforehand. And then the term of the agreement. There's no term. How long is this going to take? Is it going to take a week? Is it going to take a year? So again, I'd like those things considered if and when this comes up for further review. Thank you.
Mr. Castillo.
Good evening, everybody. I want to take my time to address pretty much the same issues that have already been discussed. I'm kind of having to juggle a little bit of what I wanted to speak on. And the first thing that jumps out at me right now is we just figured out one of the first problems. I also, of course, only have the documentation that you published, that Dunaway published. And it specifically says $5,000 for a meeting per hour. That's what it says. So let's try to, if that's not the case, and I'm sure you all read this very much in detail and you would have noticed that, these are the kind of things that cause problems. But my general remarks go more to, first of all, I want to say that I wholeheartedly agree with the council. We need our ordinances revamped, all of them. They are in dire need, and I promise you they're in dire need of revamping. They don't make sense, and sometimes they conflict with each other, or worse. There are some instances where it gets a little worse than that, and we desperately need that. Y'all have known that for over 6 months. So it's good to see that there's some movement in that area. Two issues have come up recently, one with Safe Built and one with we're currently going to debate, or you gentlemen are going to discuss Dunaway. But I do want to touch upon Safe Built because this is one of the other corporations that was brought in to supposedly save us money. I can't say enough about the debacle that Safe Built was as a rollout. They did exactly what a month ago y'all told us they weren't going to do. You said they are not going to run around ticketing everybody and citing people for tall grass. Guess what? That's the first thing they did. And I don't even want to get into some of the other issues associated with that at this time, like how people were handled when they were released from their jobs. But my questions, and I understand there's not going to be any answers, but I do want them considered at some time, if you would, have a lot to do with the money that's being supposedly spent on this contract. I believe that contract's already been signed. It stipulates $2,720 per month for 1 day per week to, I guess, drive around and check on tall grass. What's going to happen with that? I've come to understand that that may have changed, and I'm really glad to hear that. But it's a contract, so it would be nice if you could inform the rest of us as to what those people are going to be doing, because part of their job supposedly is to do inspections. We have an inspector, as far as I know. So there's a lot of duplication of effort, and I'm not really sure where the savings are going to come in with those folks. Now, getting on to the Dunaway proposal, I'm not sure what we are retaining them for. I initially mistakenly thought that they were going to redo our entire ordinance set. So $55,000 out of the gate for that seemed rather reasonable to me, because I know how complex that process can be. I know how badly our ordinances are written. But then upon reading the document, it's just for planning, development planning and zoning. That's outrageous. Is it really going to take $55,000? Let's go back just a few 4 years ago to the master plan meeting. We spent over $60,000. We had all of town out here. Y'all remember that? We decided our zoning is town center, 1 acre, 2 acre, and 5 acre. Please correct me if I've missed something. So there's really not a lot of zoning to be done unless somebody wants to reduce zoning, and we all know where that goes. So $55,000, I just don't see where that is. Not to mention the $5,000 expense, which everybody has already brought up, and I understand that that's a mistake. To me, the way I read that document, this is a master plan rework in disguise. I'm not sure we need to spend that kind of money right now. We're a $2 million a year budget. Now, as somebody pointed out, this is an open contract. That's one of the big problems with it. There's no financial cap that I could read. Who's going to monitor what they do and how much they charge us? Once that's signed, they're off to the races. They will have an open invitation to drain our financial resources under the guise of reworking all these complicated issues. One of the possible other solutions that I think should be considered, the law firm that you recently retained, that's their specialty. That's what they do. Did we ask them what they would charge? I mean, in their own website, it says that that's their area of expertise. They draft comprehensive zoning and land use regulations. I would also like to know who brought these two companies on board. Were you gentlemen consulted on this? Did you agree to this? Was this put out for bid so that the town can benefit from cost comparisons and from a look at various corporations that can offer us a different product? I'm not so sure that was done. If it was, great. It might be nice to know what other people are charging. The last two comments, if I could. In their diagnostic report, there were two errors that one's an error, one's a statement that causes me great pause. It says, and I quote, "provide adequate options for housing to serve the changing needs of the town's population." What exactly does that mean? Are we going to start looking at apartments and multifamily housing? Is that what that means? I don't know, but I would like to know. The second bullet of that same page starts ensure A, and then there's nothing else. So I don't know what they meant to say or what they wanted to say, but that kind of paperwork leads me to think that maybe they're not the best folks for us to, retain to do this kind of work. I think there's other avenues that you might pursue. Thank you.
Next item, anybody else public? I have public hearing, everything else is public hearing. Next is mayor and staff report. Council, you have anybody? Just I'll take a minute here just to touch base on a couple of things that was just mentioned. Sorry, the safe build rollout was absolutely correct. It was a total debacle. They did everything they were not supposed to do. This council sit right here on a Monday night, said, we do not want these things. I wasn't here. I was in the hospital, unfortunately.
I was here.
But Mayor Pro Tem was here. Him and I had many discussions of this since then. And it was not handled at all what they said. It is now on 100% on hold, stopped. We are not paying them $2,700 a month. They are strictly doing plan review on houses.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Not doing swimming pools, or not doing outbuildings, or not doing hot water heaters.
All new construction.
They're only doing plan review on So there's not a waste of $2,700 a month going out the window. So you all know that, and it will not go forward. Ordinance review is when we find out that we have a guy out there writing violations and we don't even have an ordinance that says you can't do that or have that. We don't need a safe build. We don't need code enforcement until we fix our codes. And that's part of similar to what possibly Dunaway might or might not do. I agree. That's outrageously priced. There's more stuff there than what we need. And this whole council, I can, just from my feeling that this probably won't move forward. But in its present form. That's correct. So anyway, just to touch base on it so that there's not people left out there with a question mark, especially with the safe build and some of this other stuff. So I just want to touch base on that. You know, anybody want to add to that or?
Yeah, a high level, just because it's taken me even a while to figure out what the word zoning, what falls under zoning, correct me if I'm wrong. But it doesn't just mean you're changing lot sizes. Our whole set of ordinances falls under zoning. Now, when we first contracted with Dunaway, our intent was to, in our mind, go through zoning and the subdivision design part of zoning. And the first contract ended up just being about the subdivision design segment of it. And then we have the zoning segment, which under the zoning segment falls everything else. And leading into the safe built folks, obviously that didn't roll out right. But what it did do is it brought awareness that there's a lot of things in our ordinances that they could go site view for, or 8-inch tall grass, for example. So we need to now know what's in there, and they're going to be working on providing us a proposal and a review of what's in there with regard to property maintenance, et cetera, and stuff. Just that segment of it. Dunaway is working more on the other part of the zoning with subdivision. And then we get into, okay, what areas of our zoning do we want to review? And that's what have this discussion, review the proposal. Obviously, the proposal is a lot more than what we're trying to do at this point in time. And we just take it step by step. So anyway.
And this council is not professionals in any of that. That's why we have to rely on consultants to be professionals to bring us back and guide us. We don't have the individual time to go out and do this or the knowledge. So that's why we have to rely on some consultants. Staff report.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So a couple of things I want to highlight in the town administrator section. As we've talked about Dunaway, one of the tasks they were giving as part of the development process committee was to do an assessment on our subdivision ordinance, as Chase alluded to, and is really to go through and clarify language. Are we violating any state regulations and laws? And so those are the things that they're focused on as it relates to the subdivision ordinance. They have come back also and looked at what our processes are, so that when a developer comes in, we can give direct information about what our processes are and how that flows from the day they submit the application to when it goes to P&Z to when they file it with Denton County, their plats as far as part of their development. So that process flow chart was submitted today as a draft, and the process committee got that. We're also looking at how do we educate our residents on new development as it comes into Copper Canyon through our website. So we're looking at that as well. I have Stephen Cook here tonight to answer any questions related to the evaluation report that was done as it relates to the subdivision ordinance, and then also the proposal, which we'll talk about that in item 4. Other things that we have moving are the finance committee. They have reviewed the budget policy and the investment policies. And so we're updating those, coming to the final version of those as far as the draft will be presented to council in November. We talked a little bit about code enforcement, and the focus is to have Safe Build look at our ordinances, and they've looked at a couple, such as related to junk vehicles, substandard structures, those type of things, and they're starting to look at those ordinances, as Chase alluded to, along with also property management, and then look at that holistically and recommend potential changes that we may want to do as it relates to ordinances and code enforcement. The other quick updates is Neighborhood Watch. Just want to remind everybody that the holiday season is approaching. And if you're going to be out on vacation, if you go to our website and go to the resident tab, you can sign up for Vacation Watch. And then our police department will get that and provide that service to us. The other quick updates is we did have a DRC meeting in October. We had 2 proposed developments, Awney Ranch, which is off Copper Canyon Road, which is about 22 acres. And then we also had Quarter Horse Estates to go along with that, which is located at the corner of Woodland and Chin Chapel. And it's 4 lots, 2-acre lots. And then any other questions, Mayor? Chris, you have any updates as it relates to engineering?
No, nothing beyond what's covered in the report.
Okay. Police department, they may be out on a call. Any questions related to the police department?
Nope, not really. Fire?
Fire?
Yeah, Chief.
Taser? Chief?
Evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me here. We're in a new fiscal year, so we're starting to execute our budget. With that, we did have a meeting last week. We do have the new ambulance. It is still scheduled to be here in February. That's the new ambulance that will be on Copper Canyon Road. So we're looking to hire the firefighters for that in January. We should get in February. We'll get them through orientation, and this should be in service hopefully in sometime in February. So that's good news. We're busy. We closed out the year with over 3,700 calls. As I've mentioned in the past, that's about an 18% increase year to date. So we're continuing to see a lot of growth. We'll probably end up over 3,800, almost close to 4,000 calls for the year. So we're just managing that growth. That's what we're doing. We do have a new fire station scheduled for next year as well, but that'll be more the North Lake side. But we look forward to having that ambulance in service. A lot of activities going on. October is also a very busy year in the community. We do a lot of stuff in the school. The weather starts to cool off from the summer. So we're doing a lot of good things. On October 2nd, we had our second biannual community stakeholders meeting. So we have all the mayors and council, not council, but the city managers. I know Troy was there. And we do a kind of give them a bigger picture of what's going on. So we reviewed our comprehensive 3-year strategic plan that our Board of Commissioners met back in June. So we went over that in a little bit more detail with them, let them kind of see what we're working on. And so we're excited about that. We're excited to get things moving forward and doing some positive things in the community which is a big deal to me. On October 5th, we had our very first community vaccine clinic. So we worked a partnership with Albertsons, and they came to our station, and we did for a few hours, for about 4 hours, we did vaccines. We gave out more than 50 vaccines, which was for our first time doing it. I thought it was a pretty huge success. And so that was a good thing. We will look to probably do that in the future as well. In November, we've got our next community event. And again, I'm a big proponent of being out in the community. But on November 10th, between 1:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon, at the Fellowship of the Park Church, we're going to be doing a flag retirement ceremony. So we're going to be working with the Boy Scouts. They do a lot of flag retirements. We have red boxes at all our stations. So we are going to be putting stuff out in social media. If you have old, tattered flags that need to be retired in a respectful way, I hate to use the word burning the flags, but we are going to be doing it in a respectful way. So on November 10th, if you have that, you feel free to come by. You can be part of the ceremony, or if you'd like to just come by the station, drop off flags, we're more than happy to take those. And so we look forward to doing that. And then, of course, we've got Santa Claus coming and the tree lighting and all the stuff here. So we look forward to coming here. We always have a good community event here so we look forward to coming to that as well here in Copper Canyon. So with that, I'll take any questions you have.
Well, thanks, Chief. Doing a great job.
right.
Hold on.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is consent agenda. Any item on the consent agenda may be removed by any member of council for individual discussion or consideration. Approval of the September 23rd, 2024 meetings of the minutes and approval of the September 2024 financials. Anything to be removed, council, or discussed? Not to entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion. We approve the consent agenda as stated.
I have a motion by the mayor pro tem. Is there a second?
A second.
I have a second by Councilmember Lieber. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, motion carries. Next item is the public hearings. These are public hearings. The first item is a final plat. We'll open the public hearing being 7:30 for a lot 1R-1 and lot 6R-1, Block A of the Greater Commission Center, being a replat of these two lots. Short story, Council Member Andrews will recuse himself at this point. I'll ask him, he doesn't have to step down. It is a property where he has sold an acre of land to a neighbor. And but everything still complies. There's no structure being built on it. It's just an expansion of one lot from another lot. P&Z has approved recommendation of this, meets the complete replat requirements. One resident did ask about, could something be built behind his house? And the answer is no. The lot's way too narrow for that. There's no setback requirements. So with that public hearing is still open. And anybody would like to speak in opposition or in favor of this? No one to speak in opposition or in favor. Time being 7:31, I will close the public hearing. Next item is public hearing on a final plat for Canyon Bluff Addition Block A, Lot 6R-1 and 6R-2 being replatted as Block A of Lot 6, the Canyon Bluff Addition, and addition of the town of Copper Canyon and Texas documents 2020-10 and a replat of the Denton County records. Council, this is a property that has been in front of this council for over 5 years. So I'm not sure there's going to be questions when it comes to you, but right now this is a public hearing and the time was 7:32. When I opened the public hearing, I would have speakers that would like to talk on this issue. And the first person is Sue Tamel.
Yep. So,
Sue Tamel, 835 Orchid Hill Lane. I'm very familiar with this 2-acre plot. It's on the northern boundary of my 10-acre homestead and has been there, we've been there 33 years. So I'm going to try and explain this as simply as I can. If you will imagine your home on your lot and you have a neighbor who wants to build on his 6 acres, but he's not ready yet. So he's going to sell off 4 acres.
Sue, back away from the mic just a little bit. There.
And when he gets ready to sell his 4 acres, he does. But he sells the 4 acres that face the street. And he is now landlocked back there with 2 acres. So he says, well, what am I going to do? And he decides, well, your home lot, it's a nice lot. You've got your home on it. He's going to take 16 feet across your home lot, all the way front to back, from the back of your home to the front where the street is. And he's going to convert what was a private easement that you had never used. It's still grassy with trees, etc. And he's going to make it a public easement that will go to his landlocked 2 acres. And he's going to have to build a road so all the construction for his home can go across it. And then he and his family will have to use it as you would any other way to get into your home. That's actually what you call a taking, and it's illegal. You have errors in omission policy that protect you, I hope, still. But Errors and omissions will not protect you if you knowingly do something illegal. And it goes even further. If you should have known it was illegal, then you are at risk for your own legal liability. You have done something that you should have known was illegal. I watched P&Z deal with this, and they kind of struggled, and they should have. They didn't have enough knowledge really to approve it, but it's come to you now. So if you take a positive action on this, then you put yourself at risk also. This lot it's got problems to it. It's what amounts to a loaf of rock that goes up like 40 feet straight up. It is really steep. That 40 feet, if you build a home on it, you're going to have a septic system, and that's going to drain right down into our 1 acre pond, which we will no longer then swim or fish in. On the northern side, that 2 acre, 40 foot high rock drains into the Corps land. You can imagine how really thrilled the Corps of Engineers is going to be if you've got a septic system draining into that. On the other side, it's pretty much the same, and then there's one little area. I was on the board of the volunteer fire district when Mike Lugo, the assistant chief, was approached about could he get a fire engine into this 2 acres. He was so protective of those engines because they cost a fortune, and he was so protective of his firefighters who rode those engines, because if you have a road collapse and that engine turns over, you're going to injure or maim one of those firefighters. So Ken Collins, my neighbor on the north side of this 2 acres, was present when Lugo very adamantly said he would not send a fire engine in there. There wasn't room to turn around, and it wasn't safe. So this piece of 2 acres has a lot of problems. We were not able to find a deed to the current people who would like to build there from them. I don't know what they're doing. Supposedly it's being financed with a private note. We don't know who owns the note. It could be the original man who landlocked himself, because he's had this for sale for a long time. And what do you do with a landlocked piece of land that you created to landlock yourself? So I think if you were to do the wisest thing tonight, you would postpone this for further legal evaluation. You don't want to put yourself at risk. Thank you for listening to me.
Thanks, sir. Jason Bowen.
Good evening, Jason Bohm. I live at 962 Orchid Hill. So I was at the meeting last week, and I know the committee that they decided to approve this. I feel like we need to let common sense prevail here. I own the property that is next to my home that these people would need to use to bring trucks in to build their home. I'm not planning on allowing them to use it for a number of reasons. I think the first one is that I just don't think that the road can handle it at this point. On the backside of my property, we can barely get Amazon trucks and stuff down there right now. And, you know, I guess to just add to the fire department, there's no way they could get a fire truck down there or an ambulance. I mean, that would be the first issue. I think the second issue is that when I bought my land a couple of years ago, I was told that acreage back there was not to be divided. Now, I got secondhand information from my brother-in-law, who I bought my 6 acres from. And according to him, now this may or may not be true, but I haven't seen anything to say otherwise. That land was not to be divided. That was not supposed to happen. So the P&Z committee maybe knows better because they approved it. But like I said, we need to use some common sense here. The township is going to put me in a position where I have to retain legal counsel to fight someone using my property to build their home. That does not make sense. Now, if the group that owns that land has some kind of documentation that says that they are privileged to use that road, that they are grandfathered in, I haven't seen it. No one has approached me with it. It hasn't been in my mailbox. Nobody came to my front door. No one has approached me. I was at this meeting last week with them, walked right past them on the way out. No one said, hey, we have something to show you. Hey, can we talk about this? Nothing. So again, I think at the very least, a legal process should play out before this gets approved. It should not be approved first and then debated in a court of law later. And that really is, I think, the biggest thing that I want to point out. So thank you.
Could I ask a question, please?
Yes, sir.
Which lot do you own?
I'm 962. I don't know what the lot is.
Would you mind pointing it out on our map?
He's not on
It's not on the
there.
map.
Okay,
He's
so
gonna be north of those lots. There's,
back in here.
He's up here.
I own this all the way back. So I go all the way back to Kent's.
Over on the side
It
here.
hits the woods and it stops.
So this is the road.
so to put contents for some that he bought his property from his brother-in-law, Rick Donahue. There was 12 acres.
Correct. There was 12 acres.
12
and then we
acres. He
split
bought
it
6
66.
acres off of that. His property enters off the road in question. That goes, his property enters in off of that road. Donahue property entered, which has been sold, off of the other private
I
right
see.
of way.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So he's north of that.
Okay.
Correct.
Sue, could I just verify that I understand what
Thank
you
you, sir.
said earlier? So the reason that this property is landlocked is because the present owner, who may or may not have a deed to it, you mentioned.
No, I'm talking about the people who want to buy it,
The-
do not have a deed to
People that want to buy it
it. Yes.
don't have a deed to it. Okay, so the present owner does have a deed to it, is what you're saying.
I assume.
Okay, so the reason that it's landlocked is because that owner sold off the pieces of property.
4 acres that walk his access, ingress of his land.
Got it.
This isn't the way I
Okay.
like to really conduct this. Is if you're gonna have a question, let's bring her up to the podium again.
Okay, would you mind? I'm so sorry. Apologies, Ron. I know this has
That
been
needs
to
to be
the council.
recorded. Everything needs to be recorded, so she has to have the microphone. again.
I understand. This is new to me. I understand. You guys have seen this before. It's new to me.
All right, you all let me know if I'm the right distance here.
Okay, so.
I always had to make you lean forward and speak into the mic.
So you've mentioned that there's a problem with fire and emergency
Yes.
access, and I think you mentioned that as well. Okay, but this has been approved by P and Z. Yes.
For recommendation for approval. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So did P and Z have legal counsel input on this?
Okay, so yes, P and Z had legal counsel, and the history of this goes back, I know, for 5 or 6 years that I've been involved with it. And has been a landlocked piece of property with no access for 5 or 6 years now. I have a string of emails from multiple attorneys, multiple purchasers.
Sure.
With different opinions. The legal counsel changed, and we will debate this on the action item. Our legal counsel changed, so the opinion changed.
Okay.
That doesn't negate other issues with this property.
Okay.
Okay, so as far as who owns it or who is deeded to is probably not important at this point. It's more.
I wanted to
Was
make sure
there-
that wasn't
yeah.
another point of contention.
Right, I understand, yeah. So, thank you, sir.
I have a couple pictures here if you want to see them, so you can see what the property you're actually talking about.
Yeah, we have that up here. Yeah, we have that. Thank you. Okay, so let me get back on track here. So any other questions for Sue, for the former mayor?
I don't. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right, thank you, Mayor Sue. Okay, we're still in a public hearing. David Bates.
Do we know who owns that?
No, small these.
Surprise, I'm the owner. So thanks for hearing our comments. So my name is David Bates. My wife Laura is here in the audience, and together, we've purchased this piece of property. Now, I wish I had taken the opportunity last week on Monday to make some comments. I did not know that the meeting was going to go and have the tone that it did. So I passed on that. But I feel like we were vilified at that meeting, and I'm not exactly sure why. Look, I'm a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. 22 years I spent in the Navy as a naval officer, flying jets off of aircraft carriers. My wife, Laura, is a recent cancer survivor. She's undergone 2 grueling 8+ hour surgeries in the 15 months that we've waited for this opportunity to get our plat reviewed and hopefully approved. As a naval officer, integrity is very important to me, and it still is today. And that's why a lot of the comments that were made at the last meeting bothered me so much. We did not buy this lot to build condos. We did not buy this lot to build short-term rentals. We're not trying to build a damn Taco Bell. We bought this lot so that we could build a home that we could retire in and hopefully enjoy the peace and quiet that the town of Copper Canyon offers. So we didn't know the previous owners of this land. We have no relationship with the previous owner. Any drama that has gone on in previous years, we were not privy to. So a lot of this has kind of caught us off guard. We closed on this lot last July, and as part of that process of purchasing the land, the bank and the title company both did all kinds of research and assured us that we had access to this lot. And I don't know about you, and how much you know about banks, I seriously doubt that a bank would have put their money at risk on property that had no access. Look, we're not trying to take advantage of anybody here. We're just trying to live the American dream, build a nice retirement home where we can settle down. Everything that we have seen, from deeds to titles to surveys, 2 different legal reviews, all say that there is access to this property. I have my project manager will go into the details of that. I'm not going to do that here, but finally, I just wanted to say that, we're still looking forward to hopefully, building this home on this lot so that we can get on with our lives. And I think that the people around us and our future neighbors, you could do a lot worse than having us as your neighbors. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mark Lard.
Good evening. My name is Mark Laird. My name is Mark Laird. My address is 1328 Grable Springs, Sanger, Texas. I'm a land rights specialist and the project manager for the current replat of Lot 6, Block A, Canyon Bluff Edition. I've fully researched and vetted the land rights of this property. I've looked at boundary surveys, 2 title policies, easements, deed restrictions. I've met with surveyors. I've met with the adjacent property owners, past property owners. I've looked at council's past items on it. I've heard rumors about political influence. I've heard rumors of discounting the property so that it could be bought at a cheaper price. All in all, that the research I've found supports the 2 title policies that we've been provided. And the property does have access to it. And I'm available for any questions that you have related to this property if you need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speak in favor or opposition? Mark, no, go down.
Evening, Mark Pape. 12050 Meadow Lake Drive, Copper Canyon. I just wanted to make sure everybody's focusing on the right issue here. We're not approving the building of a house on this lot. We're not talking about fire access. We're not talking about septic. We're talking about a transfer of a title from one owner to another. And our engineer may want to address this also, but yes, there's a problem with fire, no question about it. But that's not the issue that's before the council tonight. This is a simple property plat approval, not a housing approval. Presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission, we saw the materials you have. We were presented with dueling surveys, dueling titles. And I do not feel that the Planning and Zoning Commission is in a position to make decisions on what is the correct easement. If I have a survey that says this is the easement, we pretty much need to depend on that because that's not our expertise. The town council was here that night. Those of you that viewed the tape can see the town council said this is a legal matter between the property owners, not a legal matter between the town and the property owners. So I'm sorry our legal counsel is not here tonight to address that, but you can review the tape. That was the advice of our town legal counsel. I just wanted to make sure that we're all focusing on the right thing tonight.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Castillo?
Rudy Castillo, 3735 Landseer. I'm not super familiar with the issue at hand, and I don't envy what you gentlemen are having to decide in this situation because clearly there's a lot of issues. Sir, in point of context, I'm a graduate of the Air Force Academy as well. I mean, you were Navy, I was Air Force. I wanted a no club at the end of the long runway. And I certainly hope that this can be worked out. However, the issue presently is that you gentlemen have a legal duty to the town to protect the town, to ensure that we don't end up in some sort of a long drawn out legal litigation issue, which is going to cost taxpayer funds. And I implore you to take your time, get second and third legal opinions to ensure that whatever decisions you make are the correct decisions. They are not buying this property to put up a tennis court. They want to put a home. You heard him. And I don't blame him. This is a wonderful town to live in. We do, however, have some specific issues, as Sue brought up. We have to have septic. That's a big issue. And I think that looking at this issue shortly as from the context of, oh, we're just looking at the plat, so let's approve that. I think that's a horrible mistake because we all know that that's the train leaving the station and where this is going to end up. That's just going to create a bigger problem downstream. I think that you would be well advised, and you're all extremely intelligent, highly successful gentlemen. And I implore you to take your time, do your due diligence. We all know what a long process this has been with that piece of property. So let's just take our time. I hope that someday this gentleman and his wife can be our neighbor. But in the meantime, let's take our responsibility seriously. That's why they pay you the big bucks. And let's get this one correct. Thank you.
I saw another hand come up. Would you please come up?
Just real quick, and I want to make sure I heard this correctly. Did you say that the council for the township changed, and so the opinion changed on why this was to be approved? I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. When you were talking about, you said this has been going on for.
No, they're not the count. The legal, we had a different legal opinion in the past than what we have now. So our attorneys changed, our firm changed.
Correct. So I did hear that correctly.
Well, I have the opinion from our former attorney for the last 5 years.
Right.
Don't personally have an opinion from the new attorney yet.
Okay.
Only the P&Z was given a different opinion from the current.
Right. But previously the opinion was to not approve.
Very strong. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And there's plenty of documentation to that.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Please, yes.
I'm Kent Collins. I live at 963 Orchid Hill Lane. the history of this, not only this property, but Canyon Bluff Estates goes all the way back to the early 1990, actually, with Jerry Campbell. I was with him when this property was developed, and I purchased land, not specifically within Canyon Bluffs, but just north of Canyon Bluffs, right? So I know the history of this property. And the gentleman that owned the 2 acres prior to selling it, Scott, the developer from Fort Worth, a lot of history associated with conversations with him. Rick and myself coming down here to the council and speaking as well. So there's a lot of history here. And I'll tell you right now, there's a good chance, no matter what plat you're looking at, whatever picture you're looking at, it's probably wrong. Because when Don and Mary owned the 11.2 acres, the 18, which is lot 1, and they owned the 8 acres that was sold at 2 acres off of over here we're talking about, at one point they were replatting everything and taking easements off of everything because they had direct access to their home. They just removed easements from everything. So when Rick went to purchase the 11.2 acres in the very beginning, he was given a plat that wasn't valid because he could see a road, but there was no easement. And Don had it redrawn and had it drawn out and gotten rid of it. So do me a favor. I agree with everyone here. Nobody wants to try to prevent someone from living on a piece of property they really want to live on. But there's a lot of history here, and there's a lot of misinformation flying around. Just be sure you get the right information so that you can make the right decision.
Great. Thank you very much, sir. Anyone else speak in favor or opposition? Time being 7:55, I will close the public hearing. All right, we'll go to discussion action items. The first item is discussion and consideration of considering recommended from the P&Z Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the final plat of Lot 1R-1 and Lot 6R-1, Block A of the Great Commission Center being replatted. Council, this is a 1 acre that was sold from a 13-acre piece, I believe, and was made the other property larger, but the other property still complies. Is there any questions on this, council?
I think this is pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Yep.
I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. We approve the final plat of Lot 1R-1 and Lot 6R-1, Block A of the Great Commission Center.
I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Councilmember Liebert. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Liebert, Councilmember Hill, Mayor Pro Tem Hill, and Councilmember Gibson is in favor. Councilmember Andrews abstain with a legal abstention. Motion approved. Okay. This next item is discussion, consideration, consider the recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the final plat of Canyon Bluff Addition, Block A, Lot 6R1 and 6R2 being replatted as Block A of Lot 6 of Canyon Bluff Addition in addition to the town of Copper Canyon. So this council, for some of you who haven't been involved with this, I've been involved with this since for the last almost 6 years, 5.5 years. There's been a question mark on this property on whether it had access or not. With the property, it had been landlocked. I personally have met with 2 other property owners that purchased or was going to purchase that property. They had options on that property. They came here to meet with, at the time, Debbie Milligan, myself, I believe Sheila may have sat in some of those meetings that where we basically told them they couldn't get access. And then all at once we start getting different information. And now we have a plats that shows 60-foot right of ways. We have the plat you see here tonight. We have our legal opinion for the last 5 years, which has just been from one consultant to another, to another, to another, has remained the same. We're not trying to keep anybody from building a home, but it's very apparent that this has got a lot of question marks on it. Mike, you know, we have an ordinance that says you cannot build more than 4 homes off of a private drive.
Right.
this would create 5 homes. This would create a subdivision. You got Mr. Collins's property, the 2-acre tract, the other 2 lots in question, plus the property north of that. That means you got 5 homes entering off of a private road. We only allow for 4. There's an immediate violation right there of how do we defend that? Our attorney says it's non-conforming. Okay, my other attorney said we couldn't do it. So I've got a lot of questions, and what I see here is my recommendation to this council, and we can discuss it all, but I'm just going to give you a recommendation, is you deny this tonight without prejudice. That means the applicant would not have to go back through the planning commission, but we need to find out and do our due diligence here to find out that where we need to take this and the best way to do it. Chris, where do you stand on this?
So, like you mentioned, this has been going around in circles for a long time. One thing I think would be helpful, Mr. Laird, if that's appropriate.
Please.
There's 3 different ways to access up into there. And so you've backtracked which one specifically that we're saying is the legal access to the property.
Yes, sir. There's access along the east boundary along across Sioux to Mills. There's access along the east property along Sioux to Mills property where there's an access easement that was granted many years ago that they could utilize for access if they chose to. Now there's the existing access that goes to the property that wouldn't require any kind of new roads, any kind of tearing down any fences or anything like that. They do have land rights to utilize that too. And to add to it, you guys mentioned about your ordinance. The ordinance calls for the lots, only 4 lots, not tracts, not homes, but it says lots can have up to 4 driveways on it. Now this would be the 4th lot platted out there. So by your ordinance, it meets those requirements of having access. That's all.
But
go ahead, Chris. He's not done.
You're talking about, I know we've discussed that this is the legal access. The intention is to come up off of this road, the one on the westerly side. Is there legal access up off of this road to come into that property?
Yes, there is.
Okay, that's kind of what I wanted to just make
So
sure.
the 4 lots, so there's this road would feed 5 lots.
All due respect, I've only counted 4 platted.
Mr. Collins.
Mr. Collins' property is not platted. It does not qualify as a platted subdivision. The Donahue plat that is platted, and then this lot here, that makes 4. And we're just going by your rules and ordinances. Now, I looked at the ordinance, and it refers to amending the development code, and the development code speaks to lots, not tracts.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
So
Chris,
Go ahead.
anything else?
that's all I was going to say is that I'll mention that. And then also as far as fire access, the town has a requirement for the access for public roads. And we also have the private road access in terms of fire station, or not fire station, but fire access. Prior to this meeting, we discussed it a little bit with EMS, and as far as whether or not they provide a turnaround, stuff like that at the end of this road, which really be up to the property owner to do that. It wouldn't be something that necessarily EMS or the town can force because it's being accessed directly to a driveway or private road, not a public street.
I'll just start off by saying there's probably not many people that know more about easements than I do. And I'm not going to lie, this one was a mess. I did take quite a bit of time and dove into it to try to understand how this all happened and have a decent idea. And I'm weighing both sides. I have the side of me that, I don't want to use power of government to restrict what somebody can and can't do with their property. At the same time, looking at the landowners that spoke tonight and their concerns with using your property when they don't have the right and you're going to fight them or septic, et cetera. It's been a very big challenge on this one. You did mention that you have access on the 60-foot wide easement on the east side. You mentioned that you had access on the main road here. The road on your property, I don't believe he has access to, but that's how it's currently being accessed possibly. With that said, I'm now aware there is a lot more here. And as Sue said, and you said, don't approve a plat until everything is figured out. And I went with that. But then you think a subdivision plat, none of the improvements are done, and you can sell lots before they get done. So that kind of takes that away. But the reality is this does have some questions with regards to the access. And now that I know that, I'm not comfortable making a decision without a little further analysis from legal opinion.
What do we do with this, council? Why don't I, again, best way to do this, either table it or deny without prejudice and let it come back at a later date. But during that period of time, whether it's the next first meeting in November, would you feel comfortable if Chase and myself, along with Mark, our town attorney, I need to get, and then we need the attorney at the next meeting, but I would like to have with Chris, we need to have a roundtable on this. Okay. Whoever you would like to have here, if we bring back a recommendation, we'll be bringing it back under would you feel comfortable with that?
Yes.
Be a part of that, yes, because you understand it as much. And then we'll bring back a recommendation on where we feel it should go. Yes, Mr. Collins.
Can I ask a question and also give a piece of information?
Sure. Would you please come back to the podium?
I haven't seen what the developers are, what the other individuals are talking about as far as easements are concerned. But I want to ask a question and actually give you some information. So there's an easement that runs along the side of Sue Tammel's property, 10 acres. The 10 acres is yes. Jerry Campbell, when he developed the property, that easement was to the corner of my property, and it was for me to access. I have a statement of release for that easement, right? You have to understand that 2 acres didn't exist. It was 8 acres, which already had cul-de-sac direct access. They didn't need access to that 2 acres. So there was no design or intent for that easement to be used to access 2 acres on the backside of that property. That easement was written for me to use, and I released it for the easement that I'm currently using, which is the easement that goes up the hill. Another piece of information I want you to know is there's actually 90 feet of easement at the top of that hill. There's a 60-foot easement and a 30-foot easement. The 30-foot easement is some part of a utility easement, I believe. It's not just for ingress egress. It may not even be for ingress egress at all. In 1991, when it was platted, there's 60-foot and 30-foot. So unless your document that you're looking at has 90 feet at the top with information about ingress egress for 60 feet and 30 feet for utility, then you're looking at the wrong plat. And that particular easement, as Chase is talking about, it dead ends about 50 feet past my driveway.
Do you have that plat? And could you make it available to us to copy and
Sir, you can, yes, you can hold it, sleep with it, you can print it twice, 4 times, you guys can do whatever it is you need to do.
not that I'm gonna understand it all tonight, but this would be for another time, so.
If you look, this is 1992.
Two.
The date on that's 92?
Yes,
You see this road right here,
yes.
and you can see there's a 60-foot and a 30-foot. at the top. And this is
Right, right,
962 right here.
right. And then this is the other lot, and that 2-acre lot did not exist.
No, sir. And when you get down here, you'll see this easement actually ends. It doesn't continue. My driveway is right, the end of my property is right here, my driveway is right here.
Okay, Troy, could you take this document and reproduce it and then have it for us at another time?
So Mayor, we can make copies for
We'll
everybody.
make copies, yeah, so.
So Mayor, I agree with your recommendation. We have contentious information. We also have new information, obviously, that we need to evaluate. So I would recommend pursuing the suggestion that you had, which was, assigning Chase, Chris, and you, and others to, and the attorney in particular, to go through these additional data points carefully before we make a decision. I don't think we should deny it with prejudice. I think we should just table this till next month.
I agree. Yeah, right now, we're just good, yeah.
We're gonna collect everything. I think we should collect everything.
Let's table this to, when's the next meeting?
Why don't we include you with that diligence that we're gonna do till next meeting?
Huh?
Sure.
Now, as it was mentioned, you guys have changed your legal team. And you've changed your legal team. And I've met with Troy Meyer and your previous attorney. I've provided copies of all those easements to him. And his findings were that we did have access. That was by your previous attorney's office. Now you have a new attorney on board, and if he changes his mind, whose legal opinion do we go with? We submitted our plat back in March of this year. We just made it to this point after meeting with staff, meeting with property owners, doing our due diligence on this.
Well, we've been dealing with this for 5 years, over 5 years, okay?
Yes, sir.
And I'm not going to make a decision tonight till I know I'm solid. And I'm going to meet with the new attorney.
Yes, sir.
Along with this council member, along with other people, Chris, and we're going to bring back where we feel we need the recommendation of this council. I appreciate your position on this.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate, I'd love to have you as a neighbor. We want you to build a home here, but this is, P&Z did their job. They did what they were asked to do. Now it's our decision, but we have to be the final decision. And we're the ones that we don't have all the information we need. Because this has never come to council before. This has only been meetings and legal opinions for the last 5 years. There's never been a discussion item on this property, ever, in front of this council that I know of. But there was public input,
Yes,
but
sir.
never a request for action. This is the first request for action. So let us do our due diligence, and
Yes, sir.
we'll bring it forward.
I just wanted noted that we did provide all that information to your previous attorney's office.
And we're going to,
Thank you.
we'll find it all. So
Troy,
I'd make a motion to table.
I'll make a motion, we table until next month.
Make a motion to table this until the first meeting of
With
November.
your recommended process and diligence.
That'll be November 18th, and we would also postpone the public hearing as well.
Yes.
So we don't have to repost it.
We'll have to repost it. I have a motion by the mayor pro tem to postpone until November 18th, and I have a second by Councilmember Andrews. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous, motion carries. Next item is discussion, consideration, taking action of ordinance regarding ordinance 24-009, amending the fee schedule by amending Article 2.0 of the zoning, building, construction, gas wells, etc. Troy?
Yes, Mayor and Council, as we're reviewing all of our ordinances and zoning and those type of things, this is one thing that was on the list to look at the fee schedule for the town and make sure it matches what we are trying to enforce. So there were some pricing changes that were recommended. The administration fee in our current fee schedule was based on 100% plus 20% fees. And so, in other words, when we would pass through costs from our engineer, we would charge an additional 20%. It was recommended through our attorney that we create a flat, reasonable rate for us to process invoices that are presented to us from our professional services. And so that is what we're recommending, is just charge a flat rate of $50 to bill for invoicing pass-throughs, in other words, for professional services. There were some additional upgrades that were made. We're adding a grading permit fee, a sign permit fee, and a culvert permit fee that was not presently in our fee structure as well. There were some other updates that are related to, we can no longer charge registration fees for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So we're removing those from our fee structure to go along with that. And that pretty much concludes all the changes that were made that were outlined in the fee schedule.
We've been talking about this for a little while. I know Troy and I have anyway. Council, any questions on this?
Yeah, I was wondering what started. I haven't.
We were basically, we were charging we were marking up our costs. Then we were adding, after we marked up the cost, we were adding another 20% on top of that, which put us out of really compliance.
And looking through these, most of them are probably pretty fine, but I did come across the water well charge when we already have to, a person to drill a water well already has to go to the North Groundwater Conservation District. So 500 is quite a bit compared to everything else in here. And it's just something I wanted to bring up, maybe future conversation.
Well, and I mean, over the years, I thought, I'll be honest, pool permits were outrageous here years ago, but
I think we can still make tweaks to this later, but I think we want to fix the double
We need to fix that.
charging.
Yes, correct. Correct.
Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion, we approve the ordinance 24-009, amending the fee schedule by amending Article 2, A20, zoning and appeals.
A motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous, motion carries. Next item is discussion and consideration to take action regarding the proposal for professional planning and consulting services between Dunaway and Associate LLC and the town of Copper Canyon. Troy, I'll let you introduce it.
Mayor, so on this one, what we were looking at, there's been a lot of discussion about updating zoning and updating our subdivision ordinance. So this proposal would be an all-in if we wanted to start from scratch, and that's not what we were intended to do. Our intention was to, as we were looking at our subdivision ordinance and we were updating those, there were some overlaps, and we wanted to make sure that there was consistency between when you make a change to an ordinance, a lot of times it will refer to the zoning. And so our goal here is to have Dunaway look at that for now, look at that so that we don't slow the process down. In other words, if we went through and we updated all the subdivision ordinances and then all of a sudden had to go back and update the zoning, what we're trying to do is create a parallel process so that all these tweaks that we're making to the subdivision ordinance align with our zoning. And we had looked at, if we wanted to do this and look at all of our ordinances at once, then this would be roughly what it would cost us to do that. And I've got Stephen Cook here with Dunaway to answer any questions related to that. But at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure that our current zoning matches our subdivision ordinance, chapter 14, along with bringing up our zoning to look at any state regulations that had changed. And so they're going to look at that as part of this package. So they will definitely, rework this proposal to reflect that. And then I got Stephen Cook here, if y'all have any questions related to the contract.
Yeah, I do. Would you mind going to the podium too? So you're working through, under our existing contract, you're already working through the subdivisions ordinance, correct?
The subdivision ordinance, yes, sir.
And just to be clear about something Troy said earlier, when we talk about redoing zoning, we're talking about updating and revising the zoning ordinance, which doesn't have anything to do with the present zoning map. So we're not talking about changing anything about the zoning itself, just bringing the ordinance up to speed in terms of state law, but also in terms of eliminating conflict with our newly revised subdivisions ordinance.
Yes, sir. So I want to first thank the people who spoke earlier this evening, because they were absolutely correct. You have a plan that was done in 2020, and directly from a plan is where you start writing your zoning ordinance. Your zoning ordinance and your subdivision ordinance are tools to implement your plan. And your zoning ordinance has districts that reflect the values of the community. And so what we are looking at, and what was provided to as a proposal, was to revamp the entirety of the zoning ordinance only to those values of the community, not to bring in additional uses or whatnot, but to evaluate and understand. And every time you want to do that, if you want to do that fully, you need to make it a transparent process. And so that's why there is additional information to make it a transparent process, to have public input, to have a discussion, not only with you as decision makers, but also with the community at large. However, that seems to be a little bit more than what you as the council are looking for in that project. And we will go back and we will rewrite that proposal to kind of more heavily define it to exactly what we're looking at. The contract that we're currently operating is the subdivision ordinance. You are making decisions currently on plats, and that's what your subdivision ordinance is going through the process and looking at how plats are to be approved. And you do preliminary plats, final plats, replats, they're minor plats, and then there's a process that the state law has in allowing municipalities to go through the subdivision process. And unfortunately, our state legislature, every 2 years when they come back, likes to mess with that particular code. And so what they like to do is take away municipal power in order to control things and be able to do things. And they do that not only to municipalities, but to counties as well. So in regards, what our charge is with the current contract is to go through that subdivision ordinance with a fine-tooth comb, separate out the information. You have a lot of information in very large blocks of text that is, to be honest with you, written by attorneys. And what we're trying to do is not make it less legal, not make it less enforceable, but to make it understandable. Because what you need to have is not only understandable to your staff, but also understandable to you as decision makers, to your planning and zoning commission as decision makers, but also to the people who want to make application to the community, saying this is the process. Because when they are making an application, they're spending their money, they have carry on their property, they are asking, the process to move forward. We want to be fair, but we want to be accurate. So what our job is to create an ordinance with information allowable, and we'll work with your application so that we get the right information, that your engineer gets the right information, that the surveys, the discussion that we had earlier this evening, that we get the right information and it is reviewed. And so being able to understand that and have that fully laid out in your subdivision ordinance is our particular goal. Now, when we change any ordinance, there are references. We've had, I know that, I believe, David, you council member, you were one of the
Yeah.
ones who have provided a lot of feedback saying, okay, we want to make sure that we have this reference, cross references and cross references and cross references. Absolutely. So that's part of my job is when we start reorganizing things to make it more clear, saying this is what your authority is, this is what your decision-making process is, and this is how you get things done. We're going to make sure that all of those cross references are going to work. Now, that also cross-references into other ordinances outside of the subdivision ordinance. We will make sure that that works too. And in your enabling legislation and enabling ordinance, it will say, we are going, if you decide to approve it, we're going to change our subdivision ordinance from this section to this section. And we're going to make modifications to our other codes that refer back, and it may be just the reference number. We're now referring to this number in our subdivision ordinance. That helps make sure that we're keeping our codes correct, but it also helps when you get it codified and you're not going to say, well, they really meant this. What we're trying to do is clean that up. Now, let's talk lastly about the item before you is that for the zoning. Zoning is more than just land use. Zoning is more than just your setbacks and all of the whether this is going to be that land use or that land use. It is also about aesthetics, and you have several aspects of the aesthetics. You have some very specific ones for the TC zoning, but you also have ones for your residential units. One of which is that there's an entire section on there that controls the materials in which somebody can build their residential home out. Unfortunately, that is one of the things that the Texas State Legislature, 2 legislatures ago, outlawed. We are no longer, you're not going to get gigged on it, but it is something that needs to be removed from your ordinance because it is something that municipalities across the state are not allowed to control. As long as the materials are available within the last 3 sections of building code, then they are allowable veneers on any residential or commercial structure. So those kinds of things, what we can do, and we will modify this proposal, is to comb through your ordinance to make sure that those kinds of things are removed or modified to be in line with current state code. There is a possibility, though, after this election, that we're going to have a new state legislature. It's more than 100% possibility. And they have many bills that will be coming forward next year that may have further changes to this code and how you as a municipality can enforce those codes. That's why something is always having to go through and making sure that things are updated. Every municipality has to do this because this is the way you can make your decisions. Our job is not to come in and tell you what to do. Our job is to help facilitate the process and being able to understand what your direction is, and your direction is from your citizens at large, to make sure that your zoning is going to be reflective of your long-range plan, reflective of what you want to see your community to look like, and to make sure that it is legally enforceable. It's been my experience. I've been doing this over 30 years now and writing many, many ordinances. Also, I do long-range comprehensive plans, and I've been a municipal planner. I've been in the job where I am working for a city. I've worked 28 of those years as a municipal planner. I've only become a consultant in the last 2.5 years. I've been doing side work before for small communities who've never had a planner before. And in all those cases, I've been my opinion that you get a planner to help you write your ordinances, because then we are the ones and help your staff be able to understand how to get that implemented. You use your attorneys to make sure that it is legally defensible. If they brought up something before you that is going to be challenged, well, let's make that where it can't be challenged. Make sure that it is legal, rather than trying to reflect the values and the tools that you use to implement them. So I would greatly appreciate it if you would give us another opportunity to refine, reduce, and come back to you at a future date and work with your city or your town administrator to make sure that we get a project scope that is fully reflective. Please also do communicate with Mr. Meyer, helping us be able to define that scope so we get you the exact results that you're looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Troy, is this, gentlemen, would this be something that the board, the committee that you're on, Chase, you and Dave, take this along with Mitch Dormish and P&Z member, and I think and discuss this and refine it, and then.
Yeah, this was a little, I guess you call it premature to be on an action item.
Right, yeah.
We'll have that adjusted to what we're looking for and refine that scope.
I'd say let's postpone this until the meeting in December and give this the opportunity of November for you all to get together and refine this and bring back something in December. Troy?
In that committee, yes, sir. So Jason, that committee will we'll sort of define what that scope of work is going to be, and then we'll have them repropose.
Right, before it comes back here. Yeah.
What about, and this is a point made by Rudy earlier, competitive firms and bids on this?
Well, we did
We did an RFP, right?
For this, to get to here.
I don't know that we did it for specifically.
Did we?
No, we did it for the subdivision.
For the subdivision.
Right.
Yeah. We sure have time. This is not a rush item. And like Chess said, it's a little premature for us even to be voting on this tonight. So what would you like to do? I think you're going to find that things will be competitive.
I would
You
just
do
ask
need
that-
to
I
identify
would
the
ask-
scope.
My request would be that committee should use discretion to decide whether or not we should do that. And if we don't need to do that, why? So that there's clarity to our citizens of why we decided not to make that particular piece of this competitive.
Agreed. Bill?
I'd feel more comfortable if we also, that committee could work on looking forward to, with another group, just to make sure we're crossing the money there, make sure we're right, make sure we're getting equal value for value.
You're saying getting another bid?
Yes, I think that'd be really wise.
But you identify the scope.
That's right.
First.
First,
and then-
that's right.
Scope first.
For scope first.
And then
Otherwise,
follow
you're
up.
comparing apples to oranges.
Right. We need to identify scope before we can.
That's
put a
correct.
proposal.
Yes, sir.
All right, a motion to postpone for a future date at this point.
I'll make a motion, we postpone the decision on the Dunaway Associates LLC proposal until
December, and then we
December.
can always move it again if we have to. We have a motion to postpone until December. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Lieber. All in favor to postpone until December?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous motion carries. The committee will work on this. Next item is discuss, consider, and taking action appointing Planning and Zoning Commission and alternates. Council, as you know, this is our annual deal. We have Chairman Mark Pate and Dane Kreitz will be, I think Dane's moving up to a permanent position from an alternate position, and Jeff Hubbard for an alternate position. By the way, that still leaves 2 alternate positions, actually 3, because we didn't get, if Brian Martin, if he still gets his application in, he'll still be an alternate. If not, we have 3 alternate positions open. Is there a motion, council, on the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I'll make a motion, we approve the Planning and Zoning Commissioners and alternates as stated.
I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem, second. Second, Councilmember Andrews, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
And
motion.
thank you all for
Yes.
volunteering.
Next item is discussing consideration of appointing Board of Adjustments members, David Slavic and Gary Coleman as permanent, and is Gotham Langer, I can't pronounce it. See her as an alternate? No, didn't see him. Okay. And Sherry Gale. See, okay, Sherry Gale's here as an alternate to the BOA. Thank you for wanting to serve. And Gary's, yep, there's Gary. So Gary's going to be a permanent on BOA. Council, any questions? Not, I entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve the BOA members as stated, and Dave Svatic, it's good to see you.
Thank you, Dave. Dave, are you going to be able to continue or? Okay, good. I know you, at one point you weren't sure, so glad to hear that. All right, thanks. I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Liebert. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is a new board. There will be two members of council, which will be Dale Andrews and Dave Gibson, along with Roger Ty, our chief. They will be, the two council members will serve at the will of the mayor, and the four board members at this point will be Sue Tamel, Kent Mosley, help me with the other one, Andrea Dortry.
Sure, you run our.
Okay. As permanent, and they will have 1 year and 2 year terms. Is that correct?
Yes.
1 year and 2 years, right? So, do you have you drawn those numbers?
No, so they're out in front of you. So
Okay.
You got 4 names to draw, and we'll, the first two, 1 year term, and then the second two. 2 year term.
Andrea Dortry, is it
She's not here, but
that 2 year term? I guess. Kent Mosley, 1 year. Sue, 2 years. And Sharik, 1 year.
Shriti.
1 year. Okay. Is there a motion, council?
I'll make a motion, we accept the CCPD members as stated with terms as indicated.
I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? We have a second by Councilmember Gibson. All in favor? Unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you to volunteers again.
And Mayor, if I can make a quick comment as it relates to the Dunaway agreement, we looked at that as professional services, and so we got references based on qualifications.
Good. We'll discuss that with the committee group.
Yes.
So we,
Correct.
Everybody's on the same page. Next item is discussion item only for the Copper Canyon Employee Personnel Policy Manual, Chapter 8. Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Gibbs has been working on this. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, the context of this is that, we had heretofore a pretty immature employee, manual or policy articulation for the town. And I think, we've had some recent confusion as a consequence of that. And it was my recommendation that we get discussion going, get counsel from other towns, from our attorney, and from diligence looking at other organizations as appropriate to have not just an employee policy that makes sense for our town, but an employee policy that makes sense for our future. And that we would codify that and make sure that there's no confusion or ambiguity in future actions for employees. We're growing. We're not going to be a big town, but we need to treat every individual, whether it's one or a few, professionally and with respect. And I think this discussion is centered around the beginning of that process to put in place policies that we all believe as town leadership that represent our respect and I think, due responsibility to the residents of this town to treat our employees the way that they would want us to treat them.
Good, Dave.
No, well said, Steve. I agree with all those points. A big difference in this chapter, a component that we've added is the what we'll call a severance package, which has strata depending upon the term of service with the town, and we've defined how we handle different circumstances.
So we be voting on this, bringing it forward?
Well, just to get, yeah, it's to get feedback. So what's in your packet, you had a red line version that everything that was marked out was in the current policy under chapter 8. And then everything that was in yellow, and there was also a cleaner version versus having everything highlighted that Dave had worked on. And so if this is the direction that the council wants to move, and if there's no changes, then we'll bring it back to the council for approval as a whole for the personnel manual on November 18th.
Council give input to Troy.
I do think there's some more that we need to continue to do. So there are, just so that everybody understands, we're trying to cover how we as a town would conduct policy or to articulate policy in various exits of employees. So whether that be, employee that decides to quit, there's a certain treatment for that, obviously. An employee that's not performing well, how does that person get treated if we decide to separate from that employee? If a person's going to be, if their job is eliminated due to automation or due to, redundancy in some way, shape, or form, how is that person treated? And then there's a for cause or if we find an employee doing something that's illegal or something that is completely inconsistent with our values, there's another course of action. So there's sort of 4 conditions that we're trying to articulate in this policy. And I think, Troy, we need a little bit more in this document about each one of those categories. Like there's good articulation for resignations and for reductions in workforce. But I think we need to have a little bit more on some of the other conditions. Would you agree, David?
Agreed.
Okay. So we'll work through those.
Sure. So discussion item only. Next item is, anything to be put on a future agenda. At this point, we have some other things coming back forward.
I've got 2.
Okay.
I've got 2, and they may already be on agendas. The first is the fiscal and budgetary policies, which is a new set of policy that I think the Finance Advisory Committee will have back to council for our next meeting. And then the second one is the investment policy. So the council needs to review that, needs to review it and approve it in December. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But I'm going to propose that we make some changes to it as well, to update it to reflect a little bit closer to what we're doing and to bring it up to speed with the Public Funds Investment Act. So hopefully we'll have that back in December. And if we don't, we might have to push that to January.
Okay.
Good. With that, I will, the town council will go into time being 8:43. The town council will go into recess and we will reconvene in executive session pursuant to section 551-074, the Texas Government Code of Personnel Matters to deliberate and evaluation of the duties of the town administrator. Troy, give us about 5 minutes and we will call you back.
Can you take that in there and just note when it starts and then we'll sign it?
Oh, yeah. I'll keep walking.
Well, they were kind of doing that.
Time being 9:30, council has reconvened into open session from executive session. Next item is action, consider action from executive session. There is no action to take tonight, so I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A motion by the Mayor Pro Tem, all in second.
Second.
Councilmember Liebert, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Aye.
Or what? I think your driver is a trooper.